Well folks, I'm back up here in Ventura again and doing a little work. It rained on and off the first couple of days I arrived, but that didn't last long. When the weather broke, it seemed like everything that could happen was happening at the same time. One of those kinds of weekends. Very interesting, but a challenge nonetheless. I'm going to mount this heavy-duty security mailbox onto a concrete post out front. Unfortunately, it's very much needed at this time, so the first thing I do is take the old one off. The old mailbox was screwed onto this 2x6 board that was cracked in half. The board was glued onto the top of the concrete post using some adhesive caulking. You can see in the photos a couple of vertical slots. They were cut so the board could be mounted over some brackets that stuck out the top of the post. I don't want to cut these brackets off. They were purposely embedded into the concrete to give stability to a mounting board that a mailbox would be attached to. Some good designs are obvious. All one has to do is look. Well, I thought it best to beef up the mounting board I'm going to use, since the new heavy-duty steel mailbox weighs considerably more than the old tin one did. So I got two 3/4 inch pieces of red oak and I glued and screwed them together. I made a bench out back using a couple of 8-foot 2x6 boards and then made myself a little jig so I could work on my mounting board. Now it only makes sense to do things right, especially here by the ocean, where erosion happens much quicker because of the sun, salt, and sea. Now I'm going to use those mounting brackets to my advantage, so I cut out two slots that they'll slip right into. Now I just can't assume that everything is perfectly centered, and these two brackets aren't, but they're only about 1/8 inch off center. My slots line up perfect with the brackets on the post, so now I need to figure out the position of my mailbox on my mounting board. I find the center and mark it on the back and front of my board. I do the same on the mailbox using some blue tape and simply line them up. On the bottom of the mailbox are a number of pre-drilled holes that I'll want to mark on my mounting board. These 1/2 inch holes are bigger to accommodate pretty decent sized bolts. It's important to use the right hardware when mounting something this heavy. As you can see from looking at my board, the mailbox has 12 mounting holes. There are a cluster of 8 holes that lie within the 2 slots, and 4 holes, 2 on the front and 2 on the back end of my board. I won't be using all the holes. I figure 4 holes will be enough to mount into the concrete post in the middle. I'll pre-drill both sets of holes on either end of my board, but I won't be bolting these to the post. For these, I'll use wood lag bolts that will secure the mailbox to my board, and that should be enough. After I've drilled the center 4 holes out, I line up the mailbox on my board and stick the bolts in to make sure they fit right, and they do. It's really important to make sure everything lines up right, especially when you're using concrete anchors. If the holes you're drilling into the concrete don't line up with the holes in your board, you'll have problems bolting the mailbox down. I used a 1/2 inch wood drill bit to pre-drill my holes into my board. Now I'll use a 1/2 inch masonry bit to drill through the board and into the concrete. I'm using my cordless drill because it's the only one I've got with me. It's better to use a power drill or even a hammer drill. I decided to use redhead drop-in anchors. As you can see in the video, one end of the anchor is threaded for bolting, and the other has slits all the way around the cylinder that expand when the bolt is cranked down. On the packaging you'll find 3 different measurements. 3/8 inch is the bolt size you'll need to get for the anchors. They come separately. 1/2 inch is the masonry drill bit size. You'll need to drill 1/2 inch holes in order to drop the anchors in. And 1 5/8 inch minimum drill depth. Your holes have to be deep enough in order for the anchors to work properly. If you want to make sure your holes are deep enough, put a tape measure to your drill bit and wrap a piece of blue tape around your bit as a guide when you're drilling. As you can see in this photo, I've drilled out my holes and dropped my anchors in, threaded side up, so I can bolt right into them. It's real important to clean the holes out once you've drilled them out. If you don't have a power vac, use a turkey baser and blow the holes out. Well, I'm all ready to mount the mailbox. One last thing I want to do is to prime out my board. So I give it a couple coats of really good primer. I like to use Sherwin-Williams Pro Block interior-exterior primer. It's great for these kinds of projects. So now I'm ready to mount my mailbox onto my board and onto the post. I get out my ratchet set and begin by bolting down my 4 center bolts into their anchor sleeves embedded into the concrete post. You may find you have to tap them down a little as you go. Once these 4 bolts are cranked down nice and snug, I start ratcheting down my 4 lag bolts onto my board. Once everything is in, I'll drop in the pre-molded plastic bottom that's been specially made to cover the size bolt heads that I've used. Hey, someone was thinking, or could it be a little hint for the installer? Either way, it's been done right, and that's what really matters. So drivers, beware. If you see a mailbox like this, it's not a good idea to back into it. Well, I'm done for now. The beach was fun, but I need to get back to LA. This has been another free service tutorial presented to you by Roundel. Thanks for watching.